Welcome to the Woodstown by Candlelight. It's going to be December 1st. It's going to be 4 through 10 p.m. This is one of the premier houses. This is our 41st edition here in Woodstown without any interruption. We're going to have a walking tour featuring 9 houses from distinct architectural period. Many churches and many businesses will be open that evening. This is the featured house, which is the Samuel Shivers House, which has 3 distinctive build dates. To my right, it's 1669. It was once an Indian fur trading center located where the corner bar was. In the center between the pilasters is 1724, which was built by Shivers. And to the left, or to my right now, it's the 1813 edition. And the house features a classical Grecian type pediment with half fan over the door entablature. In addition, on both ends of the house, we have stress stones which mimic those from Greece and later on in years from Paris. Now we're going to take, well, let me mention this. What we did this year, in the last year and a half of restoration, you have period style steps. The steps somewhere in the late 60s, 40s, 1940s to 60s were cement steps. They were demolished, and now we have fresh wooden steps to mimic the original. And also the cement sidewalk was replaced by a traditional 18th century style herringbone handmade brick sidewalk. Let's take a walk in. Hello again, welcome to the Samuel Shivers House. Come on in, we'll take a quick teaser tour, what you're going to see on the Yuletide or the Christmas walking tour on Woodstown by Candlelight. Come on in. Well, welcome inside the Samuel Shivers House. This is the grand reception room. Again, we're going to give you a little bit of insight of what you can see on the Yuletide tour this year in Woodstown. This is not just decorated for the Christmas, but you get an insight of a period, 18th century, or actually an late 17th century through 18th century house. There's nothing changed. This is the grand reception room. We're going to be walking also into which now is an office, which would have been a keeping room, and to the earlier part of the house, which is 1669, through the doorway straight ahead, which is the clock room. Interesting thing about the Shivers House here is that these rooms have somehow, over the years, have been kept totally intact. We have original hand-planed ceiling, which would have only been featured in the entryway to impress one's guest in the reception room. Original raised paneling all the way around. Just a magnificent fireplace. This is all original, hand-carved. Straight ahead here we have an actual early built-in corner cupboard with shell. And at times part of the floorboards have been replaced, obviously for wear over the many, many years. This room features period 18th century antiques, primarily of English vintage. Just for example, there's a 1674 secretary desk in walnut burr. We have an exceptional olive burl ash desk. Olive burl ash is very, very rare. A great George III parcel gilt looking glass with 2 wooden gilt sconces from Venice from the early 18th century, flanked by an 18th century clock, and a clock that I have made here about 25 years ago in black walnut. The settee in front of the fireplace is handmade. I made that about 25 years ago with Scalamandre silk fabric. Let's take a walk into the clock section. Again, you're in the 1669 period part of the home, the 2-story dwelling here, and you can see how the primary phase of timber frame construction in this dwelling. Look at the massive 4.5, 5-inch by 9-inch beams or floor joists above us, and these are all original. So this part of the house has been fully restored. Now it's acting as my clock room or my clock sales room. Down this wall you're going to see an ensemble of French clocks going in reverse chronological order. Some of the newer clocks is about 1860 and they start going back into time. And as we come down here, We have one of the more interesting clocks in the collection, which will be on display for the Christmas walk. This is a clock which is donated by Benjamin Franklin to the Montgolfier brothers, which was the first individuals to have flight in the world in 1783 in Paris. Franklin was a witness to this, and in commemoration he had two of these beautiful cherry tall case clocks made and given to the brothers Montgolfier. Another interesting example is a George Hollingshead from Woodstown. This is number 135 of 265 for Hollingshead in black walnut, with a beautiful crotch door and crotch lower turtle panel, and featuring a moon wheel, which was not in all Hollingshead clocks. Only about 20% of them had moon wheels. But again, we move up here in chronological order, and essentially basically staying with British, Scottish, and some Irish clocks. Down the center aisle, back up, and these are some of the earliest clocks right here. These clocks are dating to roughly 1650, 1675. Take note, they're rather short. This one's a bit taller, but these are called English cottage clocks. They're 30-hour clocks, meaning you wind them once a day, and it has a single hand because the proletariat, or people in general, back in that time period, the 1660s, did not conceive what a minute is. The makers did, but not the owners of them. So as long as the clock was ringing between, say, 4 and 5 o'clock, they knew that was the general time. There was no reason to have any more specific time than that. This house features a 30-inch thick central wall, which, when it was, again, a tavern, an Indian fur trading post. At that point down there, there's remnants inside the walls of a cage bar, and on the other side was a drive-up window. When it was located at its other situation at where the corner bar is. So behind the chest on chest, we have the front doors, which would have been facing the Delaware Memorial Bridge. Not the original front doors, though, but they would have been there nevertheless. The patrons would have come in to trade furs, to buy and sell furs. They would have had an individual cooking at the grand 12-foot wide fireplace, and that person would have placed an order and actually stuck it through a hole in the wall to the left into the tavern room section where the clocks are. So the order would have been placed through here, and the server would have put it on the tavern table, and they would have had their beverage of choice at the caged bar. So here is a menagerie of 18th and early 19th century antiques, English and American, anywhere from great dressing mirrors to tall case clocks to watch hutches to handmade sailing vessels of the Delaware River, a German ecclesiastical clock. Well, let's explore the keeping room for just a bit. And this room was used by Shivers early on as a business. And the business he was in shearing sheep, and they actually used the wool for insulation for some of the finer houses that sprung up after this house in the Salem, Cumberland, and Gloucester County areas. In addition, they made blankets and they made clothing with it, and coats and such. And it can be seen because it has a sheep and shears with the date of the house on the fire back here, signifying the business. So very, very important indicator of time in the fireplace. So we have a petite fireplace here in the keeping room. A lot of the business was done here. Original paneling on the walls, lovingly restored. And take notice that the ceiling, that we have the open rafters, or the floor joists rather. The floor joists are here, they're open, they're not covered like in the keeping room, so you weren't being quite as pretentious in this room. Finished off by a wonderfully hand-planed raised panel molding around the top, the crown molding. In here we have a period secretary. This is English, the 1770s. We have a Chippendale chair made in London about 1776. And we also have a bust of our friend Mr. Franklin and Mr. Washington, our real founding fathers of the country. And take note of original windows. Take note of the mutton and mullion sizes on these. These are about 1.1 inches thick, the muttons and mullions. Original glass, original muttons and mullions. So it's been well preserved on the back of the house with less wind, less weather, less sunshine. And we have just an absolutely wonderful original door here. And at one time, this house This is the first house that was in the entire South Jersey area. This was the front of the house. And somewhere in the 1750s, they moved the front door when Shivers actually laid out the town of Woodstown to the front. So the main road was turned around and laid out in the front of the house. And you know, we're gonna finish up tonight by again hoping anybody sees the video. This is just a teaser. We have more to show you on the night of December 1st, and it's going to be from 5 to 10 o'clock. And this is site number 18, the Samuel Shivers House. And we'd like to see everyone out and have a great turnout. And when you come to this house again, you're walking back into time. You're not only going to see a nicely decorated Christmas affair, but you're walking back into time on one of the finest original interiors anywhere in Salem County. Most of the interiors in Salem County of houses that profess to be old and original have been sexed up considerably, trying to make them look older and make them look what they're not. Historic preservation, and this is going back to the nth degree. And again, thanks so much for your time, and we hope to see you soon. Thank you.